right, let's do this. Welcome everybody back to the Uper Farmer here. We're going to be showing how to bottle the hard apple cider I showed you how to make about 2 videos ago. Not going to be one of the longest videos. A lot of this stuff I'm going to do off camera. We just kind of talk about the bottling process. So this has been fermenting for just over 7 days. Now, how can you tell if it's ready to bottle? So the first thing you can do, if you want to get very technical... Oh, first, the drink for tonight. I almost forgot. We are visiting Pigeon Hill again from Muskegon, Michigan. This time we're having the oatmeal cream pie. So another dark beer. Ooh, actually more of a red. Again, kind of a fun one. The sound of the flavor there. Yeah, definitely more of a red. Not really a stout or a porter. Let's see. Yep. Just like their last one, you can definitely taste the oatmeal and the cream. So very good. Anyway, back to what we're doing. So one way to see if it's ready to bottle is you get a hydrometer. This is what I talked about. This is a way to measure basically how much sugar is inside a solution. And it's presented as AB or possible ABV, alcohol by volume. Again, the more sugar you have, the more alcohol you have. So we're going to let this thing kind of settle out. Perfect. And as you can see, it's settling out right at about 0. Almost perfectly at 0. So that means with most liquids, all the fermentable sugars have been fermented. The one fun thing with apple cider and apple juices, it actually goes to negative. So if we look at the scale, there's 2 scales on here. There's the 1 point whatever, and then there's the percent. The 1.000 lines up with 0%. Apple juice, apple cider is one of the few ones that gets down to 0.990. So there is still a little bit of fermentable sugar in there, but not enough that we really have to be worried about. Now, what happens if there is a lot of fermentable sugar in there and you go to bottle your cider? The problem is you can get it over fermented and you can actually have these explode when they build up too much pressure. So you might be asking yourself, well, do I have to buy the hydrometer and a beaker to test it out, or is there another way I can do it? Well, I'll show some videos and some photos here in this video. When this starts to lighten, it'll be very, very dark orange, which you probably saw in the last video. As it starts becoming clear, so you start seeing that layer of sediment, it starts clearing out. That means that pretty much the yeast is now dying off and all your fermentable sugars are pretty much gone. It's not 100% accurate. I used to use this method exclusively when I start seeing it lighten up and you start seeing through it. Then I had an experience where bottles started exploding. That's when then I bought the hydrometer and the test tube to start testing it out so that wouldn't happen again. It wasn't until later on I actually learned a little secret, which I'm going to share for you today, on what to do if you don't have a hydrometer but you really don't want your bottles exploding. So talking about bottles, these ones are kind of the high-end bottles, very thick, durable glass, but their tops are reusable. It's a ceramic top with a little rubber grommet. These are very nice. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need anything additional. You don't need the disposable caps. Clamp that down, you're ready to go. If for some reason you do want to use one of the traditional beer tops on top of there, these bottles, and a lot like them, will actually take the traditional beer topper as well. These are quite expensive though. They'll set you back quite a bit for starting out. Now what you can do is just take some of your old bottles that have the pry-off tops, not the twist-off tops, and save them up. These work great. They do kind of have an expiration life on them. The thinner glass, when you start using the bottler, the capper, to cap these, will sometimes break the neck off the bottles. So watch out for that. And then finally, there's using a plastic bottle to bottle this. Now, there'll be a lot of people who are probably upset and say you never put any beers or ciders inside plastic bottles. The two things I counter with, one, usually ciders and whatnot you're not keeping for long term. If you are, you probably do want to stick with a glass bottle. Next, plastics though, plastics have come so far from when we were kids, even in our parents' generation. They're very, very stable. And I've had stuff sit in plastic for quite a while. It has no off flavor, no off coloring, no off smell. You wouldn't even know that it was bottled in plastic. So get a bunch of Mountain Dew bottles, Pepsi bottles, 2-liter bottles. The plastic ones, we're actually going to bottle some of this today inside a plastic bottle, and I'll show you why, or explain why when we get to that part. So pretty much what I have here, I'm going to bottle primarily in my sealable, my ceramic topped beer bottles, and then my one plastic bottle. The only thing I need now is to sanitize all this equipment, again using the no rinse one-step sanitizer, and then we're going to also talk about priming sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and sanitize this, and then I'll be right back. So the bottles have been sitting now for almost 10 minutes. We still have, about a minute left of that 10-minute wait. I figured this would be a good time to kind of talk about a few different things that I haven't mentioned so far. So what's going to happen is we're going to add priming sugar. Again, just ordinary white sugar to the bottles, and it's going to keep fermenting then. That's going to give them some extra sugar to ferment out. That actual fermentation is what's going to carbonate your beverage of choice that you're bottling. I'll leave a fun little chart here on the video so you can kind of have reference for how much sugar you add. You don't want to add a bunch, because again, if you add way too much, it'll overcarbonate, causing sometimes the bottles to explode on you. But you also don't want your brew to undercarbonate. So it's that game you play as far as how much sugar do you add, how long do you let it sit for, that you're going to kind of have to do by trial and error. Now, if this liquid suddenly goes clear, and that's probably the next day or so, this liquid will completely clear out. All that yeast will drop down. You can almost see right through it. That doesn't mean that the yeast is all dead. I've had many batches that have cleared up. I've added them with the priming sugar. That does mean you may have to wait, though, a week to even a month for these to carbonate out. Is there anything wrong with drinking them non-carbonated? No, it's basically just drinking like a wine. And there's the timer. Good timing. So we're going to go ahead and get bottling. So again, if they don't carbonate out, it's not the end of the world. It's still drinkable. You just won't have that fun popping sensation of carbonation. It'll be more like a wine or a flat cider. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to dump out the sanitizer right back into the bucket. Take our priming sugar, and for a big bottle like this, it's a 1-liter bottle, I already know. It's going to take 2.5 teaspoons, and again, it's not super precise, of the priming sugar. And this is another thing, if you're going to use these, make sure when you open these up, don't touch that. If you touch that part right there, it's now no longer a sterile environment. Little pet peeve. So we're going to put that over there so this stays sterile. And we're going to go ahead and fill up our bottle. We got to make sure to open this up so air can get in. Otherwise you have it vacuum lock, which will make the process a lot harder. A little bit more. All right, there we go. So I like to fill mine about at the base, just a little bit above the base of the neck of the bottle. And that goes for any of the bottles. I don't like filling them too high, and I definitely don't want to leave way too much air, but just a little bit of room right at the base of the neck. That leaves, again, some oxygen in there so it can keep fermenting, allows for more pressure to build up, because the less space you leave here, the quicker that pressure will build up, and become uncontrollable sometimes. So yeah, and about the base, give or take. It's not an exact science. This is homebrew. We kind of have to play with it. Then we just take our cap, screw it on good and tight, shake it up to shake up the priming sugar, and have it set at the side. And then you just wait. So I'm going to go ahead and fill the rest of these bottles. Then I'll come back after I'm done filling them. All right, everything's bottled up. Now, there's a couple things to mention. One, as you can see, there still is some in there. And you have all that treb at the bottom. There has to be a point when you call it quits. So this one's not quite full. You can kind of see that there's quite a bit of head space in there. I had to tilt this thing way forward. This last bottle, your last one that you bottle, always make sure to mark it. This one is going to ferment the quickest. It'll get the most amount of carbonation the fastest. And it'll get a lot of this treb in there. And usually it's not going to taste the greatest. It'll have an extremely trebby taste, a very bitter taste. It'll kind of curl your toes. I know a lot of people, and I'm starting to get there, where I'll leave almost a bottle's worth at the bottom of my fermenter. Because this stuff, a lot of times, isn't pleasant to drink. And again, it can cause problems. If one's going to blow, it's going to be one of your last ones to blow up. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's okay to throw some out. With any home brewing or cooking or whatever you do at home, as far as these self-reliance projects, it's all about minimizing waste. But what are you getting? The bottle's not full. This one will carbonate the fastest. It'll taste the worst out of the whole lot. So if nothing else, mark your last one. I'll know this is my last one because it's not full. That way you don't accidentally give a guest or a friend the last bottle and they get really that off flavor. Now I talked about at the beginning using a plastic bottle. This is kind of a fun trick that I learned. So you can squeeze this, but you can see I can really squeeze in. Well, what's going to happen is as this carbonates and pressurizes, I'll be able to squeeze it less and less. So when this thing is rock hard, like a brand new bottle of 2 liter or 20 ounce that you buy from the store, once it's that hard where you can't even indent your fingers in, I'll know this is properly carbonated, and I can take an assumption that the rest of these are properly carbonated. So here's kind of the tip. Once that one gets hard, always use a plastic bottle. Even when I bottle in glass, I always have one plastic. When it gets hard, to the point where I can't push my thumb in, I'll try one of the bottles. If it's a good, nice carbonation, I'll go ahead and I'll stick them all in my refrigerator. They'll go in there, the refrigerator will stop the fermentation process, and then they're good to go. If it's not quite carbonated enough, I'll let it sit for another few days. I've let them sit for sometimes even 2 months, depending on what happened inside my carboy and kind of as I sampled what I found. So if you do find that, like, you open up a bottle and it just erupts, throw the rest of your bottles inside a refrigerator, somewhere cold, to make the yeast go dormant and stop that fermentation process. Other than that, this is going to take another probably 2 to 3 days for these to carbonate up and be yummy and delicious. So I'll probably do what I did before. We'll post some videos over in the corners showing you me squeezing the bottle and checking out, because these will become crystal clear. So right now you can't see through it. In a couple of days you'll see right through this. It'll be nice and firm and hard. They all will. That means it's good and carbonated and you're ready to enjoy the beverage. Again, even if it doesn't carbonate out, they are still pretty tasty. It's just a little flat. Not really that big of a deal. It's still yummy and delicious. And again, this is a very easy and very cheap homesteading, preparing, self-sufficiency project that you can do. So I hope you found this entertaining and informative. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.